guys, welcome to another fantastic episode of the Boston Chris podcast. I am super excited to introduce to you guys today a brand new artist I just learned about recently. She's not brand new. She's brand new to me and could be brand new to y'all too. I'm really excited to introduce her to all of you out there. She is so fantastic, a major part of my playlist. Now, I'm of course talking about Lavagna, all the way from Wales. She's part Welsh and part Gibraltarian. And born in the Rhondda in Wales with strong Gibraltarian roots, Lavagna has developed a huge passion for percussion. With a strong, rich vocal and a knack for instant pop hooks, Caitlin blends honest songwriting with an exciting rhythmic core. Whether it's sharing the bill with other up-and-coming artists, supporting well-established bands, or headlining her own show, Caitlin will always bring the fiesta so people can let loose and shake their frames. She cites her influences from a wide range of indie rock and pop and reggae artists, beginning with retro bands like Sting and Fleetwood Mac, all the way up to Florence and the Machine, Pink, and Adele. She is massively influenced by strong female vocals and rhythm. Man, we chatted with Caitlin about her early influences growing up in the south of Wales, her Gibraltarian roots, the music scene in Wales, her history with music, theater, and acting, her process for writing songs as a percussionist. That's got to be super different, right? The role of music videos in enhancing the message of her songs, the pandemic and the role it had on her career, and what's next for her in the future, and so much more. Guys, we are super excited to introduce to everybody out there for the first time ever on the Boston Chris podcast. It is Lavagna. Y'all check it out.
Hey everybody, it's me, Jarrett, from your favorite band, Bowling for Soup. Thank you for tuning in to the Boston Chris podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to another great episode of the Boston Chris podcast, guys. And we have reached across the Atlantic Ocean today for our guest. I think the first time I've ever spoken to an artist from Wales. We have Lavagna with us here on the show today. Caitlin, how are you doing?
I'm very good. Very, very good. Excited to be speaking across the pond as well.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to introduce our viewers to you because you're just a fabulous artist. I'm so happy to have found you. And I can't wait to tell you the story of how I actually was introduced to your music. But that's going to have to wait. Before we get into that, we have a couple of songs that you have graciously decided to include in the episode. The first one is How Not to Start a Fight that we're going to put right here. Tell us a little bit about the story of how this song came to be.
Yeah, so I studied in drama school in London. I'm an acting musician by trade, I suppose. But I've always had like a huge passion for music. So I've grown up being in like bands and duos and all of the kind of school choirs, rock bands, la 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 la. In the pandemic, I was in London at work because the theatres were shut. So I decided to start writing my own music and release it. And this is the very, very first single that I released as a solo artist. I think the version you're about to play is an acoustic version of the song that I recorded this time last year actually, in Gibraltar, because I'm also half Gibraltarian. So I went over there with my guitarist Josh and we did an acoustic set.
I'm actually blown away that this is your very first single ever. It is absolutely fantastic, and I'm excited to show it to folks. I think you guys are really going to love it. It's How Not to Start a Fight by the one and only Lavagna. Y'all check it out.
One lost toast, two ciders in the sunshine, pretending that we're alright. We were close, but couldn't take the pressure. Now I've got a confession. Cross my fingers, hope to die before you find out, before I hit the ground. Party's over, it's good night. Word is going round. I am working out how not to start a fight, how to say goodbye, how to tell you why, how to make it right. 'Cause slowly over time, my bark turned into bite. It's no one's fault but mine, and I'm learning tonight how not to start a fight. could have told you sooner, before you heard the rumor. You've been lying, and I see right through you. So now I'm gonna choose to cross my fingers, hope to die before you find out, before I hit the ground. Party's over, it's good night. Word is going around. I am working out how not to start a fight, how to say goodbye, how to tell you why, how to make it right. 'Cause slowly over time, my bark turned into bite. It's no one's fault but mine, and I'm learning tonight how not to start a fight, how to say goodbye, how to tell you why, how to make it right. 'Cause slowly over time, my bark turned into bite. It's no one's fault but mine, and I'm learning tonight how not to start a fight. Sweet like honey, you linger on my tongue, made me bitter, so I take anyone. Cross my fingers, hope to die before you find out, before I hit the ground. Party's over, it's good night. Word is going around. I am working out how not to start a fight, how to say goodbye, how to tell you why, how to make it right. 'Cause slowly over time, my bark turned into bite. It's no one's fault but mine, and I'm learning tonight how not to start a fight, how to say goodbye, how to tell you why, how to make it right. 'Cause slowly over time, my bark turned into bite. It's no one's fault but mine, and I'm learning tonight how not to start a fight.
All right, so we are back once again with Caitlin, and we have about an hour with her today. I'm really excited to pick her brain and talk about everything that makes her tick. But before we get into the real in-depth stuff, I have a question that kind of breaks the ice a little bit every single interview, and that is, what are you drinking right now? What are your favorite drinks, alcoholic or not?
Okay, alcoholic favorite drink at the moment is a spicy rum and Diet Coke.
Nice.
And a baby Guinness shot on the side, because that's like, they're too easy. They're too easy to drink. Anyway. And I'm an absolute, like, avid tea drinker. Like, tea is my favorite thing in the world, whether it's herbal or whatever. So, and I'm really into matcha at the moment. You know, like matcha lattes and stuff, like
Yeah.
hot matcha. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't do tea. It makes me pee too much, man. It's just right through me. And then I feel like I'm just renting it instead of owning it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I get that.
So again, we talked earlier. You're from you're living or originally from Wales, but also part Gibraltarian as well. I think you might be the first person I've ever actually spoken to from Gibraltar, which is amazing. But I would love to hear about your life growing up and how you kind of were introduced to music and who some of your influences might have been early on.
My earliest influences, I'd say, are like any other child, like parents, grandparents, and your school friends, and the groups that you go to school and join in with. My grandfather is like this old ex-miner from the Welsh Valleys, and he sings in like an 80 strong male voice choir, so
Wow.
it's like spectacular to go and see their concerts. So I kind of was already brought up in a very musical family anyway. My mother's a cellist, even though she's a head teacher now, but she did do performing arts. And my dad's actually like a painter and an artist. So already I was kind of destined to do something artistic. But I think musically growing up, the people that I sort of loved listening to were Santana, lots of percussion because I'm a drummer.
Yep.
So like I just absolutely loved um anything rhythmic or like in your face with like three drum kits.
Right,
So
right.
Santana was a huge influence. And then also your classic Fleetwood Mac, Sting, and then later on when I started going, oh, I can listen to the stuff that I like to listen to on my own now. That was when Florence and the Machine, Pink, kind of Adele, all of the kind of really strong, independent female big vocals started kind of, I started listening to them and going, oh my gosh, I want to do that.
I love that, man.
So yeah.
Part of the cool thing about being able to interview folks like you is just unpacking how they came to be who they came to be, and it's such a cool process. Just because I listen to your music and then hear your answer to that, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Or like I hear that little
Yeah.
tidbit, now that makes sense. Like your mom being a cellist, like
Yeah.
I can see that. I see that now. Like it makes perfect sense to me. So when did you know that music and theater were passions that were meant to be kind of important staples in your life and end up being your career, really?
I just kind of realized that every single day I was listening to music, or I had to. Like I could, if I didn't listen to music one day, I would be like sad.
It's that addiction,
It's
right?
quite, it's yeah,
Yeah.
literally. And like discovering new artists. When my friends started like getting into bands, I used to go and like hang around in the lunch break and the kind of school breaks and be like, oh, I want to do that. And then I started having lessons and stuff on the drum kit, and that really, really ignited a kind of strong desire to kind of make it a professional thing that I I say earn money from. Tried to earn money from. um, yeah, I've just always really loved music and acting as well. That was I loved doing the school concerts, and musical theatre really quickly became a massive influence to me. I think in um, some of my tracks that I've released now as a solo artist, um, I think you can kind of tell that I'm theatrical in some sense. I think I did an interview once with a guy, and he was like, what would you call your genre?" And I was in between releasing like um a ballad, and then I did like a pop song right next, and I was like, oh, I was like, I'm not really fitting into one thing at the moment, so I'm just going to call it theatrical pop because it's just really theatrical. That my songs take you on a bit of a journey. So yeah.
You know, it's funny. It's funny you say that because as somebody, as a listener, I'm not a musician at all. Never written a dang thing in my life. But as a listener and a huge fan of music, maybe I'm just missing it, but I don't see that. Like I feel like there's a separation between your theatrical side, your acting side, your musical side, and then listening to your pop. Yeah, the subject matter is there, and there's a lot of importance in your messaging in the songs. But I don't see that background unless you tell me about it, and I definitely want to ask you
Ah,
about that in a little while because I think that's an interesting dynamic. We've had musical artists on my show before, and I always it's just a cool process. And trying to separate between that and another genre is really difficult because you can pick up
yeah.
bad habits from being in a musical and being in that life that don't work in a commercial way, if you know what I mean. So
It's true. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's
yeah.
so true.
So I want
Yeah.
to talk to you about that because I find that very interesting about your style as a
Mhm.
solo artist now. But I'd love to hear what the music scene is like in Wales, where you came up in. Is there a lot of genre diversity there that you grew up into locally?
Yeah, it's I'd say there's quite a heavy kind of indie pop and rock scene here. I think a lot of the local music scene, especially in the valleys where I am, which is probably about half an hour north of Cardiff,
Okay.
the capital of Wales. There's a lot of kind of pubs and clubs that are championing young bands and indie artists. There's also a massive singer-songwriter scene, so they love the kind of folky sound. Actually, one of my friends, Sean Russell Jones, his name is, he's an exceptional guitarist, a musician and writer, and now he acts as well. Um, he is actually in a new band called the Taff Rapids. which are a bluegrass band, and they've
Wow.
been back and forth to America. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure the lead singer, I say lead singer, one of the singers in the band is from California. Not California. He's actually Canadian, I think. But there's a Canadian, a Scotsman. Sean is the Welsh guy, and they've all come together. And this is kind of like Celtic mismatch of like they calling it bluegrass, which is quite fun. But bluegrass spelt BLWS, like the Welsh.
Nice.
So yeah, that's really cool. So there's quite I'd say in band scene, and then definitely kind of indie singer songwriter vibes. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I love that. I need to go there then because that's what I really dig.
Yes.
I really love the toned down acoustic. Man, there's just so much vulnerability in that kind of music, isn't there? Like, man, I feel like the word feel is so important within music. And the more you produce something, I feel like the more feel is eroded away from what's meant to be. And the singer-songwriter vibe really captures feel. And that, I feel like that's the way it used to be, right? And now today, there's just so much oversaturation of music that, like, you lose that feel sometimes.
Yeah.
Now, you've had a long history, though, of different bands, different styles, different, just all kinds of stuff. I imagine that's because of your influences, your granddad, your mom, all of that stuff. Can you tell us a bit about your journey through time in music and going from folk and pop and rock and musicals and all of that stuff?
Yeah, definitely. So obviously I started off in school in choirs, and then I started drumming. So that meant that was able to join the orchestra. It's orchestra, as I like to call it. And that was when I started to learn about timpani drums and kind of big, like orchestrational Pirates of the Caribbean music and like, all of that classical stuff. And that was around about the same time I started drum lessons and also started a samba band. And then I got so good on the drums that sometimes my teacher would let me take the samba band. The samba band led me on to folk group where I sat on like the flamenco box, the cajon. It's used, it's kind of like a drummer's best friend for not bothering to take a drum kit to a gig.
Yep.
Um, so I started playing the cajon, and then I was like, well, maybe I can sing and play the cajon. So I started doing that, and that led me on to a performing arts um, B Tech, we call it over here, kind of like an A level equivalent, doing performing arts, so dance, singing, musical theatre. When I was there, I met a guy called Christian Penter, and Michael actually, and because there was three of us to begin with, and we developed a band called Only the Rain, and it ended up just being me and Christian continuing that, and that was when I really, really had my kind of folk awakening, if you like. And I was listening to like, oh my gosh, so many like Fleetwood Foxes, like proper indie folk groups, and I loved it, and it's where I learned to sing on the cajon, but in harmony with Christian, and really understand. We've got different accents. I'm very Welsh. He's English, so it was trying to tone into each other in that way. And I learned a lot from that whilst being in choir still, so that was really important to me. And I wanted to be an opera singer, so I was.
Well, it's
I
funny you
was
say
also
that.
learning
Yeah.
about.
Because folk and
It was.
opera, I feel like those two genres might be the two most important genres where vocals, for vocals as an instrument. Perhaps like really
Absolutely.
heavy metal too, probably would be. They would probably argue with me
Yeah.
on that, but I think those two genres, folk and opera, are really heavily focused on vocals. So, what did you learn through those genres about your own instrument vocally? Not percussionist, but just with your vocals.
Yeah. With my vocals, it was really interesting because I was having singing lessons, where I was learning all about, singing Piezu and, Time to Say Goodbye, and I was listening to, Sarah Brightman with Andrew Lloyd Webber and those types of like crossover things.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, I was going to my folk group, sitting on my cajon, learning about my posture while singing on the instrument, which I suppose it was the very beginnings of the active musicianship in me, learning to sing and play at the same time. And then, yeah, in folk group, even though my singing teacher was teaching me how to get my voice to be one kind of thing and not think about it as my belt and my higher register and all those things. In folk group, I was learning to use the change in my voice
Yep.
between, and I was kind of doing it on purpose as a kind of rebellious, like, and I love singing opera and classical, but actually this sounds so good. So I was really doing this with my voice, and I think it's really the time that I was able to do so many concerts and so many single shows and create my own music in that folk group where I was learning to love all of it and just use my voice all the time and see where its limits were and where I could push it. So I really those years were excellent and I needed them.
And when you look at your solo stuff, that is so present. You can see what see is obviously not the right word. You can hear and listen to your inflections with your voice through your delivery of the songs that you have out. Just like the one you just shared, How Not to Start a Fight. Your vocals are so brilliantly done. And I can understand where you're learning that stuff. Like, just knowing where to go with that instrument is so important in delivery, I feel. So now that you're a solo artist, I know you're not just a solo artist. It's just part of who you are, which is crazy that you do all of this stuff. But now that you are a solo artist, what struggles are you finding that may not have existed when you were part of a band or an ensemble?
I think I miss being able to gig with my friends on stage. Like being a solo artist, all of the pressure's on you in terms of, and I hate to say it, but it's especially as a female, it's so important. What you look like, what you're wearing, how you're turning up to the gigs, the safety after a gig of like getting yourself home, getting
There's no shadows. There's no shadows whatsoever. You are it. Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
This is it. And if I've had one too many to drink the week before or something, I'm going, I'm feeling a bit, there's no hiding. Especially at the moment, I've only done one big band gig. I'm trying to build on that, but obviously it's money and all, there's so many things to put into consideration with pay and stuff like that. But really, I'm focusing quite heavily at the moment on just me singing with my guitarist Josh. So it's really lovely having him there because we actually got to know each other in secondary school, so I've known him for over 10 years.
Wow.
And I really trust him, and I know that he knows when I'm having a bad gig or vice versa. Not that the audience will be able to tell, but
right.
He can. So it's really nice just to kind of look at him in a gig and go, I think we'll skip that song right now, I'm not feeling it, and he'll just be like, got you, like, okay, let's move on. There's no kind of pressure, but yeah, ultimately it is me, and there's so much pressure on me, and there's a lot of pressure we put on ourselves as solo artists that other people don't care about, but it's just all so important for like pushing your music out there. So yeah.
It just goes back to that vulnerability too, right? Like when you're writing your own stuff and now you're presenting your soul to an audience. It's a big thing, I can imagine. So we talked about percussion. And I've been very blessed to talk to a lot of songwriters over the years, award nominated, award winning, Grammy, you name it. I mean, we've had a lot of really cool folks on the show, and you would be surprised how many songwriters start behind a drum kit. You really would. But from the standpoint of actually writing songs, it is really different for y'all, isn't it? Like, you don't get to just sit with a guitar and mess with strings or mess with a note on a piano or something like that. You literally have to write the lyrics and then kind of tap or hum or whatever that gets that melody across to a musician that can actually fill in the blanks, right? What is the process for you as a drummer writing songs?
So, as a drummer, sometimes I feel like it's an absolute joy to not be constricted to like chords and chord progressions and, it makes sense to go there next, or let's just start a song in 4 because that's what, no offense, but lots of guitarists and blah, 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 they're not really interested in rhythm as a huge thing. The drums are there to support and to keep 4 to the floor, and they're just there in the background. For me, I'm already going, where's the drum breakdown? how do we set up a groove that I know people are gonna 1-2-2 in terms of like the conception side? Or there's certain rhythms that it's impossible to write a song to a certain rhythm to not make somebody dance. Like it's like psychological. Like
Yeah.
there's a certain BPM, there's a certain, I remember vividly with How Not to Start a Fight, my first solo song. I wanted initially the music video to be able to I wanted people to be able, it was a walking tempo. How not to start a fight. That's how somebody would walk down the road. Like, not at a fast pace, not at a slow pace, but that's how they'd go. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to bring my Gibraltar roots in by the kind of reggaeton feel. Dun, 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 dun. That is how somebody walks along the road, right? So, like, I'm consistently and constantly, thinking about rhythm first. Although,
Which is backwards. I just want to let people know out there that is backwards for most
so
songwriters.
backwards.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so backwards. Like some people I write with are like, "Why are you starting with the drum beat?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"Because that's gonna make the song. That's what's here. That's like how I feel." And they're like, "Okay." But yeah, like I play a little bit of bass and a little bit of piano. Not that I shout to anybody about it because I don't want any jobs playing those instruments. I'm not quite there with them. But it opens up a world of collaboration, which I don't think other singer-songwriters are maybe as positive about. Like they don't think of that as a positive thing necessarily because they can sit on their instrument on their own and produce a song. For me, I'm going, I need somebody else in the room with me.
Right.
I need somebody with the theory, and I don't feel ashamed of that because it's not my it's my weakness, right? Not with melody lines. I can use my voice. I know where I want the song to go, but I need kind of like a translator to sit with me. And what that does is it opens up a world of working with some of like now who I'd consider to be like my best friends. And we can look back on the time where we sat in my garden and I had my little cajon out or some sticks and I was singing the melody going, can we go there? What chord would that be? And they were like, in this chord. And like, I really truly feel like all of my songs so far are collaborations with friends who I admire. And that for me makes me even prouder of them, that I can say I've written this with my friend and they are brilliant too. So,
Yeah. That's going to be a horrible feeling, though, because as a songwriter, I know from hearing so many stories over the years that you're basically a conduit, and you don't really get to choose when that inspiration hits you. So you could be on the bus or the train or in the middle of sleeping or something when the thought hits you, and if you need somebody else in the room to flesh out that thought, that person may not be available when the conduit happens, right?
Yeah, so in those situations, I will just voice note and voice note and voice note, even if I can hear the strumming pattern, or if even if I'm going 1 2 3 2 2 3 3, whatever I can do to get my ideas into my phone, which I know I can send straight to somebody, that's what I'll do. And actually, because I'm an actor and I travel a lot and I'm always on tour, it just kind of works perfectly because I'm also never around. I'm not in one place at one time ever. Like this is the first time in 2 years I've been home for more than like a month. So
Right.
it's like, and I'm more than happy to travel. So yeah, it can be difficult. Of course it can be. And sometimes
So,
you've got to wait, but yeah.
So when you do have to wait, when you have to delay that, you're in a certain spot, whether it's whatever emotion you're dealing with at the time that thought comes. Does your background in acting actually help you get back into that space when you do get to collaborate?
Yeah, definitely. I've definitely in the past I've written little kind of after the point at which I put everything musically that's in my head into my phone, I'll then sit there and I'll describe my surroundings and I'll say I'm on a bus, I've just done this show, I'm on my own, it's dark, this is the temperature. I'll write all of my senses in like a list so that I know that when I go back to writing that song, or even if I'm on Zoom with a friend, I can go I can literally put my head right back to how I felt in that moment.
That's
and
amazing.
I think that's definitely come from acting.
Man, that's
sure.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's great stuff. So staying with songwriting, because I'm always so genuinely inquisitive about the creative process. Do you typically write songs from your own personal perspective, or are you able to kind of transition into somebody else's mind space as well, and get down what they might be feeling or seeing?
I've definitely written at least sections of my songs where I'm predominantly talking about my own experiences, and then maybe a bridge will come in. It happened with Pretty Alright, my recent single that I
Love it.
released. The bridge, thank you.
Yeah.
The bridge is actually my friend Lauren had messaged me and said that she was struggling because there was no work coming. She's an actor in London. She's from the north, but she lives in London. And we just had this Zoom conversation to like catch up, and she was saying that she was struggling, and as soon as I came off the Zoom, I thought, oh, wouldn't it be so lovely to write like a poem to encourage her, or to like, or for all of my friends who are struggling. It's kind of the same vibe as Night Bus, where I was talking about London and stuff. And I immediately just wrote the lyrics to now what I know as the bridge to Pretty Alright, which I thought when I wrote Pretty Alright, I went, that makes sense now, because Pretty Alright was me talking about my past experiences, and looking back at like moments where you're not okay. And then I thought, well, I don't want it to be a sad song, so that using the poem that I actually wrote for my friend Lauren, which was maybe more her experience than mine at that point, I was like, if I put that in there and I make it a bridge, it changes my sad, depressing song about not feeling good about yourself into this like kind of what's the word? Momentous, like you can get over the hill, like keep going.
I mean, it's about
Strength
victory.
song.
It's about victory. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when I put that in, she was like, "Oh, I love the song. I love the bridge." I was like, "The bridge was the poem that I wrote for you about a year ago that I sent to you to be like, carry on, you can get out of the rut." She was like, "Ah, I can't believe it."
All
So
right.
yeah, I can write for other people, and luckily all my friends are like musicians, actors. We're all very like in touch with our feelings. We all talk a lot about the industry and how we're all doing, and when the next jobs come in, and the anxieties we all face about getting work. And I think because my friends are so open with me, it really helps me delve into their lives.
So I got to talk about Pretty All Right. It's further down my outline, but since we're talking about it here, I'm going to bring it up here because I told you I would tell the story of how I was introduced to you.
Yes.
So I could not sleep without. Well, let me put it this way: I can't sleep with silence. I have to. My brain needs something to tune out whatever it is it hears when it is quiet, right? So
Yeah.
I always have something on YouTube or wherever, podcast or whatever, going in my ears just so I can sleep. Now, the way I
Yeah.
have my laptop set up in my bedroom is the algorithm always gives me interviews because that monotony keeps me asleep. Just the very drone of two people talking or whatever. And somehow your song, Pretty All Right, entered my algorithm one night while I was sleeping. And I don't know how. It's literally in 2 years. I've never had a song play as part of my algorithm. It's all podcast all the time. But for whatever reason, Pretty All Right gets into my ears. I'm dead asleep. And you woke me up. You literally woke me up. I was like, "What is this, bro?" Like, and I look over, and it's your visualization. It's not like the official audio. It's the official visualizer. And I wrote a note in my docs. I said, "Caitlin Lavagna, flesh out in the morning," and then I went back to sleep. And so that's how I met you. That's how I was introduced to your music. It's so crazy. Um,
That's
e-
wild.
yeah, even now I don't get it. But mental health awareness and self-image issues are very prevalent in this song, and those are two things that are very important to me. And I care a lot about them. And your song is such a powerful message of the struggles that so many people in the world deal with, especially now after COVID, right? Like we're all dealing with some kind of baggage within our own souls. And a lot of times with that, I don't know if you're familiar. I'm sure you are with imposter syndrome. We're always trying to talk ourselves out of being good, right? So
Yeah.
um, also, from the standpoint of parenthood, I'm a father to three daughters. So the message in the
Oh,
song is
lovely.
magnified even further for me because of that. I would love to hear a little bit more about how this song came to be for you. And I want to hear you talk about why you decided the song should be a tale of victory rather than the opposite, because you know the songs can take you down the opposite path that this one takes us to. So, how did you
Hmm.
decide to win in this song?
I it was actually a really conscious decision from me and my friend Mark, who I sat with to write this one. Um, we started writing it together, and we didn't really know what the song was to begin with. It was all very confused. I was just kind of looking back at a time where I wasn't feeling myself, and I didn't even want to get up from bed, and it was yeah, I was just feeling really rubbish about myself. Um, and when I actually started writing the song, the lyrics were from the first person. So it was, I'm not sleeping, I'm not eating, I don't feel okay.
Right.
And I think the reason why the song changed into a victorious thing actually was that I was sat with Mark and I thought, what if it's like a reflective song, right? Because the beat and everything else about the song isn't reflecting what the lyrics are doing at the moment,
That's right.
which was actually making us really stuck with it. I was like, I can't, something's not working here. Like it's not the right vibe or feel, as you'd say. So then I started kind of saying, well, I don't feel like that now because I wrote it in January with you, and now it's like March. I feel a bit better about myself now. So we've toyed with the with a few ideas, and I thought, well, what if I try and take myself, my past self, out of my head, and what if I'm writing to her in January as Caitlin in January, and being like, you've got over it, like look where you are now, you're fine, and things are pretty all right at the moment, actually. And you might go back, but that's fine because now there's a song for you to listen to get you out of it again. So then that's when we changed the words to she's not sleeping, she's not eating, as in past Caitlin's not
Yep.
doing okay. But now look at me because I've been honest with people and I've told my parents that I struggle to get up today and I've got over that kind of I've shared my problem so it's halved. I think that was the idea there. And then immediately, as soon as we decided to change it to she, that made so much sense then to be like, so what do I do now? Me, Caitlin, as the artist, singing the song and the bridge now, you know, and then we swap back into I guess present tense and me now, which made a lot more sense.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah.
And just thinking about tenses in music, I never thought of it that way. But I mean, this
Mm.
song is a novel in 4 minutes or 3.5 minutes. It truly is. And I love the way, and not just with this song, but with every song I've seen you do so far. I love how you use your videos to further the message with visuals. It's so difficult. I feel it's so difficult to do that. Like, how much music today do you see, and then you go to see the video, and it does not match at all, right? Like, it's just like, what? What are you doing? But with your music, like, it's just, it's, I don't want to say embellishment, but almost like an accessory to make the visuals more of a message for the song. Obviously, that's a strategy of yours, right? You're that's on purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't got management and I'm not signed or anything. So I think a lot of the pressure that I talked about earlier that I put on myself, is trying to be management, PR, artist,
True
everything. I'm
independent
like,
artists. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
well, yeah, I mean, not with the budget I would like, but yeah, I'm trying to do everything myself.
yeah.
So I realized actually quite recently when I was writing a new song that's going to be coming out. Um, I I think there's a name for it where you kind of can see music, like it's color and it's
Absolutely.
the stroke. So I think what's happened because I've actually just before coming on this Zoom, I've been picking my next single artwork for my next single that's not announced yet, but it's going to be coming out in October. And the photographer Owen, we did the shoot for the music video and everything about 2 days ago now. So it's that fun part now of going, right, what do I want the color on Spotify when it's this big? How is that going to pop? What's going to catch somebody's eye? how does this color reflect the song? Because what happened was we went to this beautiful Welsh beach, which we're very lucky to have here for free. And we shot this music video, but it was such a bright day. I mean, of all the days, it's normally raining here, right? We're
Right.
known for our rain.
Yep.
It was a beautiful day, a September day, and it was so bright. We had to wait until further in the evening until the sun had gone into golden hour. And then the colors on the sea and the sky, I mean, they were so beautiful. And then there was a lunar eclipse. So this we were filming, we were doing maybe take number 4 because we tried to do the music video ×2 speed, which means it'll be like Coldplay's Yellow. So it'll, when it's slowed down, I'll be miming the song, but it'll be in slow motion, which I think's perfect for the vibe of the song.
Mm-hmm.
And this beautiful like moon started just coming over the cliffs, and we were like, oh my god. But the pictures, the single artwork that we'd been taking earlier on in the day when it was brighter, obviously those pictures came back and they looked like a summer, I don't know, like a club song or something. So I've just been having the conversations with Owen, which is so funny that he brought up color and imagery and video. I said to him, although I'm in a summery mood now, I've just got back from Gibraltar, I've been doing some festivals this summer, I feel summery still. It's actually my autumn release, and it's going to be moody and dark, and it has to reflect the song, which is actually more of a rocky ballad.
Okay.
So yeah, color is so important to me. Visuals are, I think, because I'm a storyteller at heart, I guess, because of the acting, it's so important for me to, it's really fun doing something completely different sometimes, and I probably will toy with that. But there's always got to be some message with if I'm using balloons for Run a Mile, which is my other single, or with Pretty Alright, I was smashing the TV because the TV is visual, and all my life I've had to look at pictures of myself and look at videos of myself and self-tapes and auditions, and it was just that kind of physical thing of being like, oh, let it all go and just smash the TV up. If you don't like something, you don't have to look. You know what I mean? It's all kind of an extra. It's an extra. I don't know what the word would be like.
I don't know if this. I don't know if this is what you're going for, but for me, like it's like a representation of who you are, not just as an artist, but just who you are, just organically, right? Like it just. That's what I feel in the videos. I'm like, okay, I see Pretty Alright, and I'm like, okay, she's a warrior, man. Like she's not gonna mess around here, right? Like Run a Mile is the same kind of thing. Like I'm not dealing with this crap. Like I'm just not gonna do it, right? And so that's a representation of your personality, even outside of your creative process, I feel.
And I feel like if the videos that match my singles can start off really authentically where I started off after writing the song, in terms of I went through those things, I'm not making them up. So if they can start there, and then by the end people can be watching and going, oh well, she's got through it, so I can. That's
exactly.
Kind of like music therapy for me. So I'm
Absolutely.
Like, that's great, you take that message.
Absolutely. Yeah. So subject matter is a massive reason why I love your music. I just absolutely relevant subject matter is so important when you're trying to reach an audience. Your confidence in the delivery of that subject matter is another. So why is the messaging so important to you as an artist within your music? Because obviously with each song you're trying to portray maybe a topic or a certain subject and then pushing that out there. How like making it relevant, how important is that to you?
Massively important. I think I'm an auntie, so you said about your children earlier as well. And like sometimes I'll babysit my 4-year-old niece, and I just think to myself, oh my gosh, you've got so much of like your life to experience. And if I didn't have music, I might not be here today because I discovered artists that got me through challenging times. Obviously, the obvious one to pick out of the basket is Adele, right? For Heartbreak. We've all listened to one of Adele's songs after a breakup. It's like,
of course,
and we've all listened to Bon Iver in a forest somewhere when you're feeling really lonely. There's certain artists that I even now turn to when I'm in a certain mood. I think because of the acting and because of, like I said, about the colors and how different colors make you feel, and also stories and experiences. I think if I can help people go through things that I've experienced by them listening to one of my songs, that's my job done, really. You know, I've always really been interested in like music therapy and how you can use music to help psychologically with people. So I think that's the kind of deeper, darker side of it. The kind of on the surface level side is me going, oh God, I did this thing once and it was really stupid, and I think I'd quite like to write about it because it's probably quite funny. Or, oh, that guy wasn't very nice to me. He did say this thing to me though. Oh my gosh, that's a song. I'm gonna write about that.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's like the boring answer, but the real answer is I feel like I'm a good communicator and I'm an empath. And when people get hurt that I care about, it really affects me deeply. And if I'm able to write that about that for them, or if I'm able to help them by them listening to their story portrayed in my music, then like that's my job done really as an artist, I think. And
Yeah.
because it helps me as well.
And songwriters always hold back songs. I know this for a fact. There's always songs that are too personal, too vulnerable, too whatever the word is here, too emotional. So I know you have those songs. You don't have to share them with us. I know this just from having talked to so many different songwriters over the years. So how do you decide? Because the songs you do have out are actually very emotional, very vulnerable, very that. So I can't imagine what the ones are like that you're holding back. So how do you decide which ones to put out and which ones to keep?
I think I kind of go with seasons as well. Like as an example, my next single, which is called October, obviously you'd think release that in October. That actually isn't the reason I'm doing that. It's because it's the first song that I will be releasing, which makes me nervous. Whereby actually it took me a year to write this song lyrically as well. It took me a full year, and rather than pretend that I wrote it in 2 hours and released it as a single and not focus on that, the song itself takes you through my year. It's 5.5 minutes long, not radio edit. It's a really, you need to sit and listen to the story. Um, and that's probably the most personal I've ever been in a song, I think. And it terrifies me a little bit that that's in less than a month, that's no longer mine, and it's like for everyone else
Mm-hmm.
to listen to. Um, it kind of happened a little bit with Pretty Alright because I'd only released Gold this year before then, and Gold is a really upbeat, fun song. But Pretty Alright was the one where I found it really bizarre that people were like, clap, 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 this is brilliant, what a great song. And I was like, have you listened to the lyrics? Like, are you not asking me, am I okay? Like, what? It's like, hang on a minute. I've just put out a really quite a sensitive, feelinged song out, but people are just listening to going, oh, it's a bop. It's so cool.
Yeah.
I listened to it in the car. I was like, great, yeah. And I found that bizarre, but I think this one is evidently a heartbreak song about kind of feeling lonely and um, being really hurt by somebody and really let down by somebody's promises that they couldn't keep. And effectively, it's about being ghosted by somebody that you literally thought that you were absolutely smitten with and in love with. And I think that's terrifying because it's going to bring back all of those
Mm-hmm.
feelings from this time last year when I started writing the song.
Yep.
So, as much as I say, oh, I want to release songs to help people and to talk about my experiences and stuff, it's so difficult being a songwriter because you are taking a risk by saying it as it is.
Yep.
And I'm quite honest when I write. I'm not trying to be poetic. I'll even run a mile. It's like you told me I told you that I thought I loved you, and you said you nearly run a mile. That's literally what the guy said to me. So I was like, well, here's my chorus. Like, I'm not trying to cover anything up or be artistic in that way at all or metaphoric. There
Yep.
might be a time where I do release a song that's a bit more mysterious, but at the moment I'm quite enjoying kind of experiencing life, having a break from it, reflecting on it, and writing about what I've got through. So October is definitely a new experience for me in terms of being very honest in the fact that it's taken me a full year to write that.
So I had a very famous songwriter tell me a piece of advice. I always ask some of the more well-known songwriters, what's a piece of advice you would give to a young songwriter? And he said to me, he said, never write anything and then put it out there unless you're willing to be identified by that song, because you never know which song is going to be the one that hits. And also be willing to sing that song 4 times a night for the rest of your life, because if it hits, that's what's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
So such good advice. Yeah,
Wow.
it's so true. Like
Yeah.
I've seen songwriters that are like huge country music songwriters that had a pop hit, and the pop hit just went explode, and you would never know that this person was a country music songwriter because the pop song is the one that hit. So you just never know. Now we did talk earlier about
Crazy.
obviously your background in the arts and on stage and live musical performance and acting and all of that stuff. What facets of that do you enjoy the most?
Lots of the work that I did and have been doing post drama school is actor musician work. So my favorite thing in the world is when I get cast as about 5 different parts in one show, and I'm like costume changing, then running to the drum kit, then doing my scene, singing the song, dancing, going back off, getting the bass around me to play a little bit of bass, and then that's my favorite thing in the world. I love what you talk about body image and things. I love what putting a different pair of shoes or a different wig on does to you, as you know, in terms of like your posture or how you carry yourself. And it's just really fun being different people,
Mm-hmm.
like a little chameleon. Like especially if they're real people and you have to portray, literally last night I went to see Lee, which is the new Kate Winslet film. So I've been watching lots of her um, kind of interviews about becoming a real person rather than just a fictional character. Um, and how different it is because you're going off date and exactly what age they were at a different point in
It's
the
much more
play. And
regimented, right? You don't get to be as creative when you have to actually
yeah,
be someone real. Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. You've got to kind of do your history research. You become a historian
Yep.
really
Mm.
first. Um, and yeah, I love verbatim work. I love literally copying like interviews and trying to get the right accent and the right tone in your voice to become that person. I haven't done as much of that, but I'm hoping that that's in my future in terms of acting. But yeah, I just, you know, effectively, I get paid to be different characters in different outfits in different venues across in the world, everywhere. Obviously, predominantly the UK at the moment, but who knows?
Mm.
And then, yeah, the best part about it is that you get to kind of be a family for a few months, like this weird, quirky, artistic, crazy family that are all on the road and learning lines and going to the pub after a show and laughing about something that's gone wrong or somebody coming on the wrong costume or it's great fun. It helps me not get writer's block for my music because I'm consistently in different environments and I'm
Right.
never in this kind of 9 to 5 mundane thing where I go, oh, now it's time to write. What am I going to write about today? What cereal I had for breakfast? You know what I mean?
Mm.
I'm one day I'm in a prog rock musical called Operation Julie in North Wales where I've never been before, and the next minute I'm doing panto in Cardiff, and I'm dressed as a fairy dealing with children. So like it's you know,
I can't
and
imagine what your
like two
dreams are
days
like.
ago, I literally like it is crazy, and sometimes living out of a suitcase is so exhausting.
I
I
bet.
just want my own place in one place. But like at the moment, I've got nothing tying me down, so I'm just trying to lap it up and experience everything that I
So,
can.
again, two sides of Caitlin Lavagna. There's the acting side, the musical side, and then there's the more mainstream music side. I don't really want to categorize you as mainstream because you're not at all, but like it's more meant for the masses rather than just for a stage, right? So how much? I have two
Yeah.
questions here that we talked about a little bit earlier in the show, but how much does your background in theater kind of bleed into your other side, where you're trying to be more marketable, commercial, more listened to, so to speak? And is there, or do you put up a guard against letting that bleed through? Like, is that something that you're thinking about when you're writing?
Definitely. I was in the studio recording the vocals for my next single, October, and I remember Alex, my producer, saying, and Joe, sorry, Joe and Alex, my producers, because we did it kind of half and half this time. They were both like, I wasn't happy with the take that I had done because it wasn't necessarily what I would think to be perfect. But they were like laughing at me, going, "Yeah, but you're not in Les Mis, so just chill out." They were like, "It's not perfect in terms of vocally perfect," but they were like, "We all know you can sing. We all know you've got the technique, and you're not going to damage yourself if you put a bit of rasp on that one little bit of the song that's
Mm-hmm.
really, as a listener with your headphones in, it's really going to get that story across that you're like at your,
Mm-hmm.
wit's end." And I really had to take a moment in the studio and go, "Oh, this is so difficult because I don't want to sound like a trained singer, but I also want to sound like I've got the range and that I know what I'm doing with my voice." Because not to be savage to any other artist, because who says you should have a singing lesson in your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I do find is that I am able to do uh 10 shows a week and still maintain the ability to go and do gigs on the side if I wanted to, because I've got the knowledge of how to look after my voice. I don't necessarily always look after it, don't get me wrong.
Right, right.
So, sometimes having a whiskey is more important. However, um, there are things that I've just got knowledge of with my own voice, and I'd like to think that me and my voice are like best friends, and that I know how when it needs a break, and I know when I can push it a bit more. In the studio, it's always so interesting because usually, because of my timings with recording, writing, and getting something out, when I've got enough money to go into the studio is when I'm actually on tour with a show. So I've got to kind of split my vocal kind of stuff down the middle and go, okay, I've come from doing this prog rock musical where I'm singing like 10 shows a week, and I've got that, and that's what's funding me being able to release October. Great. Now I'm in the studio and I've got one take to get this in, and that take is what people are going to listen to for the rest of their lives because that's on Spotify.
Yep.
Do I want it to sound polished and perfect? Probably not. I probably want to just let rip a little bit and have a good time and see where my lyrics take my voice when
Yep.
I'm emotionally connected to that. But I let it lead with writing quite a lot because I think, like I said, I'm a storyteller and um I love being dramatic. I'm just a dramatic person, like I am. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
in touch with my feelings, and I'm not ashamed to say that actually. However, sometimes, of course, there's moments where I, like I just said, where I choose to go, "Okay, trained singer, goodbye. I'm just gonna have a good time." And not think about the consequences, and then I work backwards so that when I do my live gigs, I go, okay, now I've got quite quite difficult vocal songs to sing in a half an hour slot where I'm doing seven in a row,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
With like my big ballads and stuff. Like they're big songs. So then I go into kind of more musical theatre territory where I go, okay, if I just flip the voice there, if I work through it, and if I put a breath in there, I'll be able to get that note no matter what state my voice is in. So it's kind of mathematical for me, like that.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love it. And you mentioned money. Unfortunately, money is such a hindrance to creativeness. And you talk about only having one take, and that's why, because of the money, right? Because having a second take costs more money. Having a fifth take is going to cost more money. So
Yeah.
you have to get it right, or at least as close to right as your creative person will allow you to have it, right? But I
Yeah.
imagine when you listen back to it later, after your one take, maybe it is too perfect sometimes. So, how do you deal with that? Because you are a creative person and you want this to be perfect within your mind, but you don't want it to be perfect in the sense of in the sense of theater. What do you do then? You
Yeah.
just change it for your live performances and just like tell a different story. Like, what do you do?
I think doing the songs like acoustically live is always really interesting to me because Josh, my guitarist, will tell you this. I sing them differently all the time, depending on what mood I'm in on the
Right.
day, and depending on where my vocal range is. And it's the same song effectively, in the same version of it acoustically. But I'll decide to belt a note, and I'll decide to head voice a note, depending on how I'm feeling and how the story's coming across, and also what I'm getting from the audience. Because we forget that the audiences, especially for live performances, you could be in a venue that's giving you so much energy, and sometimes I find that makes me calmer and I'm just doing my job. Sometimes when you're like begging for attention from an audience, you use your voice differently. Okay, you do different things. um yeah, the money thing is always a worry, especially because I'm using acting to fund music, probably the two worst things to like. It's not like I'm a politician on the side that's getting a decent wage to release the music.
Yeah.
It's people say to me like, you're very fight or flight, or you should probably like, you're using an unpredictable art form to fund an unpredictable art form.
Yeah.
Like, so if anything, that makes me even more determined. Like, I've got nothing else distracting me from those two things. So I'm either acting or I'm doing music. There's no kind of in between for me. And I think that's actually what's dragged both of the careers, if you like, into one. um, yeah, and they happen to coincide. Like, I released my single "We Lost Track," which is one of my first ballads. Around about the same time, I was in Fisherman's Friends, the musical, which was this shanty kind of folk um, musical where I was working with a lot of string players. So then I was like, well, I've been waiting to write this song. It's a ballad. Come play strings on the song. And then that happened, and that was my folky solo stuff. And then I was in Operation Julie, which I've mentioned, the prog rock musical, which I'm so proud of. I was surrounded by prog rock every single day, and then Gold and Pretty All Right kind of came out of nowhere. So it kind of means that, like, I suppose the acting funding the music it's working at the moment. I can't afford a house. I can barely afford to keep my car running, but I'm very lucky to have such good contacts in both industries, and they believe in my music and they want to be involved. So I'm just at the moment, I'm just taking each day as it comes, and we're going with it.
And it's
Yeah.
keeping your cup filled creatively too, I imagine, probably, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah, if anything, sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I'd love to be a lawyer. Like, just take me to a normal, like, give me an admiral job. Let me work for Admiral for a bit, like on a call center, or like, please. I just want to wake up, have my breakfast, do my workout, go to work, and come back at 5 o'clock like everyone else. But it's
yeah.
just, I would collapse if I did that. There'd be nothing keeping me going.
Oh, I completely understand. Like, interviewing people is not exactly a huge money making enterprise. It's all about passion, right? It's just about the passion,
Yeah.
and that's what it's about at the end of the day. And unfortunately, passion doesn't pay the bills.
No, no,
So I have a
it's
couple
not.
more questions. We're about at an hour. Do you have a little more time?
Yeah, I've got a bit of time. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
So, first thing I have to ask, because I've noticed your, so I guess it's strategy for releasing these songs as singles. I know this probably has a lot to do again with money. So I'm
Yeah, yeah.
curious if you plan on compiling these into an album or an EP at some point.
Yes, I do. I'm actually I'm working on my first ever EP. I think it's probably going to be 5 to 6 songs. So quite a big one. Obviously, money wise, again, toying with the idea of doing a 3 song EP and then keeping 2 singles for after, so I'm not kind of drying up after putting
Right.
everything into one thing.
Yep.
But I do think after I release this single in October, I probably will extend, not have a break necessarily, but this year I've really pushed getting 3 singles out rather than just two. If you look at my Spotify, you'll see the years kind of developing more and more. But I think after October, I want to really. I've already started writing it, but I want to have some time, proper time to, like you say, compile some songs so that they kind of go together in one story, if that makes sense. to release. So yeah, I am working on an EP. I think it naturally feels like the right time to do that. I don't think I can just keep releasing singles, but of course it is to do with like budget and stuff like that. So
Well,
yeah.
I mean, I was just curious because, like, I love the singles and I understand the reason behind it. A lot of people may not. A lot of people may not even care, to be honest. But, like you mentioned, your Spotify. Going into your Spotify, it's like one song, one song, one song, one song, one song, and I love that.
Yeah.
But you know, with your style, your subject matter, the songs don't really go together in any kind of
No.
constructive way. And writing an album or an EP, I feel like from the standpoint of a conceptual way, is much more difficult, right? Because like
Yeah.
if you go from one song to another and there's no kind of transitionary process there, you can lose your listener. And a lot of times that's why a songwriter will just release single after single after single, apart from just the monetary reasons. Okay, so let's bring this home. Looking back now, you've got all of this history, all of these experiences that you've lived, all of these influences that have inspired you throughout the years, whether they were familial to you or just popular artists. Do you wish there was something you could go back and change?
As in the music.
Anything. Anything that you feel could have helped
Oh,
you
that's a
better.
really such an interesting question. I've never been asked that before. Um, I can change. I think the boring answer is no, everything happened for a reason and yada yada yada. But of course there's stuff I'd change, obviously. I would have continued piano lessons. I would have not give I would have discovered drums a little bit later, probably, or at least had the kind of tenacity to keep both going rather than being like, that's the boring one, I want to do this. um I definitely would have. I think one thing, even though I did just say, it frees me up to do so much more as a drummer to work with other people. Ultimately, my goal at the moment is to try and be the predominant writer of my music going forward. And I think I've been having piano lessons again. You'll be glad to know.
Nice.
I've just been going back to like music theory and going, well, what's so hard about maybe if I try it now because I've got a reason to want to do it now, and it's not just a teacher telling me to learn. Maybe I'll have a bit more kind of get up and go in terms of learning. But yeah, I definitely think I would have kept more of a melody instrument in my kind of to a high level. I don't know if I'd change anything else. I think there's obviously, the acting career side of things is going so well. I haven't stopped working. I think this Christmas is the first time I've not got a Christmas job since graduating. And I try to remind myself when I feel like I'm falling behind or I'm not doing enough, I try and remind myself that I graduated university or drama school in the pandemic. So for 2 years, I couldn't actually get started. So it was so frustrating. Um, I'd like to go back and say, oh, all those rejections from drama school for the 2 years that I tried to audition and get in, and I got told, no, you can't, you're too this, you're too that, you're too forward, backwards, whatever. Um, I think actually I wouldn't change that because it's given me the rejection skin, the thick skin that I need in both
Tenacity.
industries. So yeah, and I think that was such an important time. Don't get me wrong, it was a really difficult time. I was so desperate to go and train, and I couldn't make sense of it. Like I was like, I've done this all my life, and everyone kept telling me to do it, and now I've applied to the professional big institutions, and they don't want me. What the heck? What's going on? It was so difficult, and I stuck at it and I got in and I trained. And then obviously, yeah, like I said, the pandemic happened. So it was a bit like, oh my gosh, maybe this isn't meant to be and I shouldn't. I should
Well,
just
I
get a
think what
normal job.
COVID really did for people of the arts, whether it's songwriters, bands, whatever it is, COVID came along and essentially made all of the creative people non-essential, and in the terms of the world globally,
Yeah.
But each of us as creative people don't feel that way. We feel very, very essential, right? Like that is the most important thing to who you are as a human being. And then the world
Yeah.
tells you you're not essential. That's tough to deal with from that standpoint. And I mean, COVID really knocked the crap out of people in that sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for me, I graduated drama school in a band called Big Wednesday. We were an
Mm-hmm.
indie pop rock band, and I was a female singer drummer in it. It was my dream. I was like, I finally made it. I am Karen Carpenter. Thank you, Lord. Somebody's letting me sing on the drum kit, and it's not just oohs and ahs. I'm singing the verses and the chorus, like I'm singing lead with my best pals. And what that did was what COVID did, sorry, was it split us up because we couldn't afford to meet up. We moved out of London. We were just graduates. We couldn't afford to stay in the big city. So Ian, the bassist, was from Scotland. He's in a band called Tiberius, who are amazing. Jacob wanted to do his own music, so he left. And then Harvey was living in Brighton, which is south.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I'm Welsh. So we literally did this.
Mm-hmm.
But had COVID not have happened, I wouldn't have gone through that kind of what I call grieving, because it is when a musical thing ends, it's like you literally lose like a limb. I was like, oh my gosh, all this money, time, effort, writing, experience in touring together and playing together, and the EP that we did a fundraiser to release. Our friends wearing Big Wednesday t-shirts. It's all gone. It's just
Mm-hmm.
gone, and we're not important to anyone. We can't keep this going. But had that not have happened, and had I not had time to sit back in Wales with my family and question why, I was doing any of this stuff, I wouldn't have released How Not to Start a Fight.
That's right.
I wouldn't have released my first ever single. I would not be sat here with you now. Like, everything happens for a reason. It's the
Mm-hmm.
boring answer, but it's so true.
I was gonna say that's exactly what brought you here. So like it's like everything is so circular, right? Like it's just it's how it
Yeah.
is, man. Life is circular. People don't realize it until you really start to sit down and talk to somebody about themselves, how circular everything is. And I mean, who you started at the top of the circle brings it all the way back around to who you are now, and everything in between that is how you shaped your being now, and that's just the cool thing about being human, right? Like you just never know where your
Yeah.
journey's going to take you, and you just sometimes you just have to roll with the punches, you know.
Yeah, and as much as there's bad times, there's the good times, and there's the times that connect you to people across the pond. I didn't know I'd be talking to you. Like, it's crazy. Absolutely
It's
nuts.
pretty cool, right? It's pretty cool to get to
Yeah.
meet somebody. I'm from Texas, you're from Wales. Who would have ever thought, right, that music could bring people from around the world together? It's such a cool thing. So my last question for you is
Yeah.
probably going to be the hardest one for you to answer, perhaps. Who do you think you are? Who is Caitlin Lavagna?
Oh my gosh, what the heck? Um, I'm just a silly little girl from. No, I'm joking. I'm trying so hard. That's who I am. I just keep. I'm a pusher, and what's the next adventure? What's the next connection I can make? Where am I going to be on a plane to next? What experience can I get? And who can I meet? Who's going to come into my life, whether it be in acting or musically, that's going to completely blow my mind and change my genre, or like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I suppose that's who I am. I'm a bit of a wanderer. What's that word that I love? Wanderlust. I love
That's
that word.
I love the way you answered that question, because we talked about tenses earlier in Pretty All Right, and everything you just said was in the future tense. You are looking forward, and everything is forward for you, and that's an amazing answer. It tells
Yeah.
exactly who you are, in my opinion. So if anybody is hearing about you for the first time, hopefully we have a lot of viewers in the United States that are learning about Caitlin Lavagna for the first time, and I hope you guys are going to go and do what I've done and really immerse yourself in her sound and play it over and over again. But if you could tell people where to follow you, where would you send them?
Come to Wales. No, I'm joking. You can you can find me Online, everywhere. On TikTok, boring, but yeah. On TikTok, I'm called Caitlin Lavagna Music. You spell Lavagna Lavagna. It's very close to lasagna. So if you can get Caitlin right, you're on the right tracks. So I'm Caitlin Lavagna Music on TikTok. I'm Caitlin Lavagna on Twitter. I'm Caitlin Lavagna on Instagram. It's my own name. I haven't picked an actor's name because I am just me. I'm just an artist, like whatever. And yeah, you can find me on all of those things. I try and post really regularly, personal stuff as well as music. YouTube, or all of the places, Spotify. Ask Alexa. Alexa loves me, especially with different accents. She finds it quite difficult to play me. So I challenge you to ask Alexa to play Caitlin Lavagna. Very difficult for her.
Okay, so I'm going to challenge people out there to comment down below what the result was from you asking Alexa or Siri. So if you guys made it through this entire episode, this is your chance to prove it by commenting down below and letting us know what happened. You guys will see on your screen her name, the proper spelling of her name. It's been there the entire episode. At Caitlin Lavagna is how you can find her just about everywhere. Even if the ats change, just go to Google, enter her name, and it will give you the different, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all of that stuff. And be ready because there's a new single coming in October called October. And you guys will get to see what she was talking about. We're trying to get the summer out of the video.
Yeah.
Get out of here, summer!
Move over.
Caitlin, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate this very, very much.
No, thank you. It's been so much fun. It's been a really lovely interview.
Thank you.
Hey y'all, it's Megan Barker. Thanks for tuning in to the Boston Chris Show.